Hello, everyone. Welcome to Consensual Conversations. This is my dear, wonderful friend, Rachel, who I've been talking about a lot. Rachel, do you want to say anything about yourself? Introduce yourself in however way you feel.
Sure, absolutely. I my name is Rachel, and just as a precursor to, you know, what started my interest in consent and boundaries and all of these conversations, I've been in a non-monogamous relationship for a little over 8 years now, and one of the keys to any healthy relationship is being able to look within, find your own boundaries, communicate them to your partner, respect your partner's boundaries. All of this is so integral in building trust,
Hmm.
which is good to have. And it's nice to
It's a
have
great.
trust in a
It's a really
relationship.
important part. So, Rachel and I have been having a lot of these conversations around consent over the past few years. We met on set where she was a makeup artist
Mm-hmm.
there, and we would just sit and talk in the chair because when you're in the chair, you're stuck
There's
there.
nowhere for
There's
you to
nowhere for
go.
you to
You
go.
have to listen to the things I say.
Yeah. So we have been developing just meeting. We did a lot during the pandemic of like starting to meet to have conversations about consent education and relationships and how we can help people navigate these waters that nobody prepares anyone for.
And nobody really teaches you. There's kind of this attitude that you're expected to know, and if you don't, you're an asshole.
Warning: we're going to be talking about sex and relationships and sex things and using curse words. So this is don't, if that upsets you, don't watch.
Challenge by choice.
Challenge by choice. Yeah.
Got that from my
CBC.
mom. Challenge by choice.
So, to dive into our show today, I don't know if you saw the headline. One of the things that we're going to be talking about are soft no's. What is a soft no?
I believe, Peter, that a soft no is any method of communication short of no, stop, I don't want to do that. And that can be verbal, it can be physical, it can be eye contact. There are a lot of different signals to look for with soft no's. Soft no's might even sound kind of like a
Soft
yes.
nose might be a yeah.
Yeah, okay,
That's also a no.
sure,
Right.
I
So,
guess.
here's the big thing about like consent and why people talk about enthusiastic consent, which we'll sort of break down. Anything that's short of like, yeah, let's do that, they're kind of still on the fence. So yes, not a resounding yes. Soft no's really require you to pay attention. And the thing is, we as human beings, we know when somebody's saying no.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the sort of space where a lot of sexual assault happens and a lot of sexual misconduct, or just even a lot of like, I had a time with that person and I walked away not feeling great about it.
And I don't want to interact with that person again because of how I'm left feeling.
Right. That comes from people not paying attention to the soft no's.
Yes.
Um, and a lot of that happens because when you meet somebody and you're really excited and things are like going really well and you're in the room and you're like, oh yeah, I have been wanting to hook up with this person super bad and here we are, we're doing it. You might be touching them and like their body's just not responding a lot to it,
Yeah.
but you keep going because you're there.
And you're so excited. And you already have this picture in your head of once I get to this point,
Yeah.
that's it. I've made it.
There's a big thing of like we started making out, of course that is also a yes for sex.
Spoiler alert, it's not.
it's not
It's not.
it's not
So many things are not an automatic yes for sex,
Yeah.
even though they seem like they might be.
right. So we run into these situations with people where you are driving towards the thing that you're excited about so much that you're ignoring all of the signs to stop ahead of time. And the crazy thing is like we do this in platonic relationships too. Our show is going to be also about like managing relationships of all types, friendships, parent relationships.
This happens in the workplace too.
Happens in the workplace.
Absolutely.
We call that coercion. Coercion is that moment where you're out on the dance floor and one of your friends isn't dancing and you might start going like, hey, come on.
Let's go dance.
Let's go dance.
No, come on. Don't be shy. Just let go and feel it.
Yeah. And they're like, I'm not really feeling it. You're like, oh, come on. It would be so great. Come out here and dance. These are examples of us doing coercion. And there's a difference between coercion and pressuring
Yes,
people.
Absolutely.
And like part of the reason why we wanted to have this podcast are for distinct things like this, where you may never have stopped to think about the difference between coercion and pressure. They sound like exactly the same thing.
They do, but it's different because of where it comes from and the conversations that took place before that interaction.
Yeah. So the way that I like to break it down, coercion is when you are applying pressure to somebody to get something that you want out of the situation. So in the dancing example, I'm like, hey, come out on the dance floor because it'll be more fun for me if they start dancing.
And I will feel like the fun person if I get the quiet person out onto the dance floor. I love feeling like the fun person.
Yeah. And then pressure, which is something that we use to help each other grow. Pressure is when you're doing something, when you're applying pressure for someone for growth that they want.
That they have communicated to you that they want.
Yeah. So if somebody comes up to you and is like, hey, Peter, they wouldn't say Peter unless your name was Peter. But hey, you,
Hey, person.
hey, person.
I don't think they'd say that either, though.
Hey, you, my dearest, closest friend. I'm tired of being a wallflower. I really need to start being better about getting myself out there. I love dancing, but whenever I go out dancing, I'm too shy to get out on the dance floor. This is a situation in which it's like, okay.
I would totally love to support you. The next time we go dancing, I will maybe give you a little bit of pressure and have you come out on the dance floor with me. Maybe it might be easier to do it if I give you an invitation first rather than getting up the courage to do it on your own.
Right. And so even in those moments, you still have to listen to the no's. So there might be an example where I go, hey, Rachel, do you want to come on the dance floor? This being a moment she's already told me she wants to get better.
Oh, I don't know. I'm feeling really shy.
Okay, that's totally okay. I'm going to be out there with you.
Yeah.
Do you want to try it now?
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No, she gave over that yes pretty quickly, which was great because I know Rachel actually does want to go out on the dance floor.
I do love dancing.
She does. Okay. But there's a situation where this person who has said, "Hey, I really want to grow. I really want you to push me to go out on the dance floor." You can ask a few times, but if they're still saying no, you have to still accept that no. There is the, "Hey, I'm going to remind you that you told me before that this was something that you're interested in growing in. I'm here to support you.
So,
if you don't want to do it now, though, I'm not going to make you do it."
No. Putting pressure on someone, also known as holding somebody accountable for the things that they've asked you to support them in, that does not make it your job to make sure that they do it every single time. You still don't know what is going on with that person, what happened to them earlier in the day, where their body's at, where their mind is at. Like, they still are in charge of their body and their autonomy no matter what.
Yeah. Hells yeah. So, difference between pressure and coercion, your intention. And that is such a big deal, especially when it comes to sex and relationship and the consent space in general of, am I trying to initiate, am I trying to get something because I want that thing, or because this is something that this person wants and has communicated, or is something that is good for them and not me? Those are all different paths.
And also along those lines, sometimes, unfortunately, intention doesn't matter. Sometimes you may not be intending to hurt someone or make them uncomfortable, but you still do. And regardless of whether or not you intended to, that doesn't change their experience.
Yeah.
Even if you had the best of intentions, that doesn't invalidate somebody else feeling uncomfortable. So the way that you tell the difference between pressure and coercion is, did we have a conversation about this beforehand? Did this person communicate to me that they wanted this pressure? Because if that communication happened, guess what they gave you? They gave you consent.
I'm up here. I'm gonna sort of like segue into another avenue on this. To put it all out there for you all, the key to having really incredible sex with your partner is listening.
Ooh.
Damn.
What?
I know. I know.
And not just listening with our ears.
Listening with every part of
Your eyes, with your energy, feeling their body respond to you. You want to be plugged in and very present. We've talked about, how do you be present in the moment with somebody? If you're hooking up with someone and your mind is not thinking about their reactions and how they're feeling and how you're feeling, if there's anything else coming into your mind, you're probably not in the moment with them.
Yeah.
And if you're not in the moment with them, that means there's probably a communication breakdown happening. And that's when things tend to get a little murky, maybe a little harmful, maybe a little awkward.
I mean, listen, and the reason why I use listening as a key to having like great sex, there's also just like good sex, and then there's like okay sex, and you will have all of these different things up and down the scale. But the listening plays a really key part, because let's say it's someone that you've been with for a while. Mm-hmm. You know them, you know their body, you know how they react. There's sort of shorthand that you develop with each other. This time you two start getting intimate. It's amazing. Their body's really responsive. They're being very vocal. You can feel the shifts. They're on the same wave with you. The next day, you're doing all the same things, and their body is not responding.
Not giving the same response.
Not giving the same responses. And now this is also an important thing. That could be for a myriad of reasons.
Oh, so many. And it's not your job to figure out exactly why, unless they feel like communicating that to you.
Right.
That's not what's important.
So there are those moments where it's like, okay, clearly this is not going as well as it did yesterday.
So let's stop.
Let's stop and check in. Take a pause. And that's an important thing. It's like, it's okay to, even when you are, before you even have sex, and even when you're in sex, stop, pause, breathe, shift gears, check in.
Check-ins are so important.
Yeah. Check in all the time. And checking in is really sexy. It's not a mood breaker.
No, it's not. And there are different ways to phrase check-ins, even if you're playing with a power dynamic, even if there's a little bit of role play going on, there are ways to check in with your partner while still staying in that space and not breaking the illusion, breaking the mood.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you all one really key thing and why check-ins are way sexier than not checking in. So many people suffer from this thing of, God, they kept doing that thing. Clearly I wasn't into it. and it wasn't working.
Doing it anyway.
I sat there frustrated and annoyed, hoping they're also not checking in, by the way, not vocalizing the thing that you need. If you're like, hey, I need an adjustment, or I need this to switch, or like, hey, let's try this. That's why checking in is important. Because if you don't check in, you could be spending a long period of time doing something that is
not going to go anywhere.
I'm not going to say that it's like damaging to what's going on in the relationship, but like,
uncomfortable.
People are not walking away being like, that was amazing. High fives all around.
No.
No.
It's chafing.
It's so much better to go, okay, I can tell that they're not responding. I'm listening with all parts of my body. This isn't working. Clearly we need to do something else.
And also, to be fair, sometimes if someone has given signals that what's happening is not what they want to happen, they just check out, right?
Oh,
that is a very common response. Even if you haven't said, hey, this isn't comfortable, or please stop doing this, but you feel like some part of you has been communicating that and you feel like it hasn't been listened to, a very common response is just to shut down and wait for it to be over.
Rachel, I just came up with our first slogan.
Oh, God.
Ready? Check in before they check out.
It's so true. It's corny, but it's so true.
These are we have to do a podcast because we need a series of slogans and phrases so we can start a group mind think that uses our terms.
Check in before they check out.
But that is true. I mean,
oh, yeah. Checking out during sex is incredibly. Checking out during any interpersonal interaction
happens
is very
all
common.
the time.
If you're trying to talk to somebody and they steamroll you and they don't really let you into the conversation, and you're just like, all right, I'll just sit here and wait for you to stop talking and then I can walk away. Like, is that the energy you want with your partner in the bedroom?
Mm-hmm. Now, that leads us to another really important thing. The person that has checked out. A lot of people will say, okay, I was giving them all of these signals.
And the other
I
person
wasn't moving. I wasn't enjoying it clearly. And they didn't stop. And never did it occur to that person that, like, hey, at any moment, you could have said literally
hey,
anything.
excuse me.
Yeah.
Maybe a nice hand raise.
Right. And that leads us to a really important thing. There was this podcast that I showed Rachel to. It's called In the Know. It was done by Radiolab. A lot of people try to be nice. And we don't say no. We don't say the word no.
Right. We don't want to hurt people's feelings.
Yeah.
We don't want to make other people uncomfortable. There's so many reasons for not just outright saying no.
Right.
We don't want people to think badly of us.
We will say everything but
Except no.
I'm good. I'm fine. Maybe another
Maybe
time.
later.
Yeah.
Aw, you're so sweet.
Right. But all of those things that we just said, if the person that was approaching us for asking us out on a date or whatever, you are fixated on the result that you want. So you're going to round up
Right.
the things that they said. They didn't say no. They said maybe another time. I'm good for now.
And that other time will be in 15 minutes because it has to support this picture I have in my head. I feel like one of the easiest ways to miss soft no's is to go into an interaction with major expectations of what that interaction is going to look like. You already have the scene in your head down to the moment, and you're so sure that that's what's going to happen that you are checked out of what's actually happening in front of you.
But that's a tough thing to give people as a tool, because we can't say don't have expectations. Or if you are going to have expectations,
manage your expectations.
Manage your expectations.
Manage your expectations.
As human beings, like, I'm going in for a job interview, or like this is a date with somebody I always wanted, our feelings of hope can take over.
Hope and expectations are two very different things.
Sure.
Hope for the best. Oh, man. Shoot for the stars
Yeah.
in terms of hopes. Expectations is when coercion starts to happen. Hope is about like what you want to do. I think expectations are about what the other person is going to do, how the other person is going to act. And like if I walked onto this podcast with very specific expectations of exactly what you were going to say and you don't say them, then I'm going to get tripped up and flustered rather than just like being here with you, jamming on consent, you know?
Yeah.
So managing expectations is really key. You can hope for the best, but don't write a script for the other person. They're a human.
Yeah.
Very complicated.
It is. And I kind of want to stay in that, again, because part of the point of us doing this podcast is like to help people navigate these very gray waters. And I don't want us saying something as simple as like managing your expectations makes it sound easy.
Oh,
It's
no.
It's super not easy.
All of this stuff, like I want to break down some very simple sayings
Yeah.
because I want this to be accessible. But just because something is simply stated does not mean it's easily done.
Yeah. And this is sort of a coercion kind of trap I'm going to kind of put out there. So I'm asking Rachel out, and she seems on the fence. And I know that if I say one thing like, hey, would you like to go out? And you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm kind of busy this week. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to bring my puppies with me on this walk. And like, if you want to come, my adorable dogs are going to be with me.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool.
Right.
I'd like to pet some puppies, honestly.
Okay. So that is something that we do in our conversations with people. It's like, well, Rachel said no, but Rachel doesn't have all of the information.
Yes. Informed consent is very important.
However, you as the person go through the pattern of, yeah, I just got a date. She said yes. She did not say yes. What she said yes to was the puppies. Okay. And fine. You're going on this date. You're walking your dogs. And maybe she changes her mind on the date, but you have to walk into that date knowing the yes that I got was the yes for the puppies, or the yes for the movies, or the yes for the expensive dinner, or the yes for the trip to ...
Yes. And I think perhaps that is something that a lot of people miss about dating. Saying yes to the first date is not saying yes to everything else that you're hoping for. The first date is an opportunity for you to show them why they might want to say yes to other things.
Right. Yeah.
You don't have something in the bag as soon as you have somebody's contact information. You don't have something in the bag when you finish a first date, second date, third. Like there are so many little steps along the way. And very often the dynamic on a date is, okay, show me what you got. Like why should I keep hanging out here? Why should I spend more time with you? Are you going to give me evidence that hanging out with you will be safe and fun? Or are you going to give me evidence that hanging out with you is going to be uncomfortable and weird?
Yeah. And there's also going out on that first date of like what you two are both looking to get out of a date. Some people might go, oh, I want a date because, man, I've been super horny and I need to get laid. The other person might go, oh, I'm going on a first date because I'm super lonely and I've been wanting some companionship, or I'm bored and I need fun.
Yeah, I need to go try something.
Yeah. Getting on the same page about why you're even going on the date for the first place is a pretty important and healthy step, which just helps you. All of this is there to make sure you have better dates, a more success rate. You're doing things and they're more fun.
This might feel very overwhelming and complicated. You're like, wait a second, this is before we even get to the sex. This is like way in the beginning. But again, check-ins, communication. If you are not sure why this person is going on a date with you, there's probably going to be an opportunity at some point on the date where you're like, hey, so what are you looking for? You know, we met here. I'm really happy. I'm having a great time. Just curious. Like, what's up with you?
There's also, we as people, like when someone's talking to you and like if they're like on a dating app or they're asking you something, if they're like, I'm strictly asking you on a date because I want to fuck you. If you say yes to that date, you are saying yes knowing that this person's only intention is to invade your personal business with theirs.
And maybe that's something you're looking for too. And that's great.
Great. But that's a key thing is people will step into situations and go, God, I was talking to this guy on this app and, you know, it was just like a lot of sex talk. He sent me some dick pics. He like went through this thing. And I'm going to go grab coffee with them. It's like, okay, well, like, but you know what, the thing that you said yes to going on a date with them, the only thing that they have expressed no interest in you as a person. They have expressed no interest
Your
in
interests.
your interests. What
No.
you want out of this,
Nope.
you cannot walk into that situation absconding all responsibility.
Expecting something different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Managing expectations. Yes. Also, just to by the by, the only good dick pic is a dick pic that has been asked for.
Yeah.
That's it. End of sentence. Like, hasn't asked? Don't send one.
So I was talking a little bit briefly about this, the In the Know Radiolab podcast, which I'm going to show. The reason why I bring it up is because this was a private study that this woman did, where she was recording all of her intimate interactions, and she had an encounter with a friend of hers that she had no intention of this situation ever becoming a sexual relationship.
But it did become sexual.
It did. And you will listen to the podcast and you'll listen to her experience of it, of being like, these are all the ways that I was communicating this. These were the no's that I was giving. These were the signals that were there. The crazy thing about this story is that the second half of the story, she goes back and she listens to the tapes of herself, the tapes of her interacting with, it was two different people.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was listening to the tapes of how she was interacting with two different people. And as she was listening to it, she has this unsettling realization that if she were a third party person listening to the same conversation, she's like, it doesn't sound like I'm saying no.
No. Just the audio, to be fair, but yeah. She listened to it again as an impartial person. She realized that hard no never came up.
Right. And so then what happened to all parties involved? This became a traumatic experience for everybody. And this was a particular situation, and the reason why I bring it up is because this is everyone's a little bit at fault. That kind of led to this space.
Everyone could have listened more. Everyone could have communicated better.
Right. But the lesson to walk away with is not, oh, she was responsible and this happened to her because she didn't say no.
No.
Not what it is.
We're not victim blaming.
Never.
That's not okay.
The real lesson is that we end up in these situations where we are so deferential to the person that is across from us, to the thing that they want. And I will fully admit, I have said yes to a lot of intimate encounters that I did not want.
Same.
And,
absolutely.
And that is something I know that I was saying yes. And there's also a huge difference between men and women, because in all the scenarios that I was in, there was no way I was in any physical danger.
Really.
It was something that I had to like emotionally process, and that is something that does happen to men, women, non-binary people, transgender people. Like there's a lot going on.
But there is a specific dynamic when one person is just physically bigger and more powerful than the other person.
Yeah.
Right? There's an inherent power dynamic there.
And it's hard. And as I'll speak for sort of like a cis male situation, we don't ever experience the world the way that women do. And the closest approximation would be, imagine walking around and everywhere you went, there were like 10-foot tall grizzly bears. Okay.
Who wanted to fuck you.
And also,
like,
you did too. Like, and
sure,
sure.
But they all want to fuck you and they don't make a secret about it.
Yeah. Yeah. They're very invasive in your space, and you've got nothing.
Right. No.
There's nothing you can do other than avoid it, carry a rifle.
And you just hope maybe some of them are nice and might listen to you.
So we have a very different perspective. So as we talk about these different scenarios, even though these things can happen to people of any gender, these are all things that happen to each gender very differently.
Absolutely.
And it very much changes the stakes. So one of the things we want to process, because a lot of people are in a different space, whether you're starting out in dating or you're freshly single or you're in a long-term relationship. Consent works differently in each of these spaces. When you're in a long-term relationship, there is a phrase called assumed consent, which is we have established each other as intimate partners.
We know each other very well. We've had these conversations, these initial conversations about some of these boundaries.
Yeah. That doesn't mean that because there is assumed consent that, and this goes back to the listening thing, that like sex should just happen.
No. Well, it can even be something as small as you wouldn't go up to somebody you don't know and plant a kiss on their lips.
Right.
But I think most people don't check in with their significant other every time they go in for a kiss. However, there are times where you go in for a kiss and your significant other is like, I don't want that right now. So there is a lot of assumed consent, but there is also an opportunity to say no if they're not feeling it. So that can go anywhere from, the touching, hugging, and kissing all the way into specific sexual acts.
Yeah. And there's also, there's a thing, I highly recommend everyone listening to Savage Lovecast, Dan Savage's Lovecast.
Oh, yes.
It's a great place, wonderful community there. There's also an expression that we're going to talk about in some of our answering of questions about maintenance sex. So, maintenance sex might fly in the face of the enthusiastic part of the consent part.
Very much so. Maybe if you've been in a long-term relationship, you're like, God damn it. It's been like 2 weeks. Am I thrilled about it? No. But am I uncomfortable with it at all? Also, no. This is a way that I'm checking in with my partner. This is a way that I'm connecting, sharing intimacy with my partner. And is it going to completely blow my mind? No. But hopefully I'll get an orgasm out of it and then I'll sleep better.
Or not.
Or not.
Or not. So the realm of maintenance sex is basically a space where you and your partner are sort of meeting in the middle, trying to sort of like match up where each of your needs are at. And sometimes those needs are in conflict.
Yeah, sometimes one person really wants to have sex and the other person really doesn't, but you don't want to keep that experience from your partner. So you find an alternate way to support them having that experience without you doing something you really don't want to do.
Okay. That's the key. You're finding another way to support them. So that is where the enthusiastic yes is now.
Exactly.
So if my partner comes up to me and I'm not in the mood, they're like super horny, I need this right now. Do I want to do it right now? I don't. However, I love them. I want them to feel good. Is it going to be a lot out of my day? Not really. So I will dive in enthusiastically to support my teammate.
And this doesn't always have to mean we're going to have PIV, also known as penis and vagina, sex. What most people consider to be that is sex.
And I think that people should we should all start breaking away from that being the yes. If you're saying yes to something, this is the thing that you're saying yes for. One, in your long-term relationship, you got to vary it up.
There's one of the best tips I could ever give about being good at sex is treat everything that leads up to PIV with as much attention as importance as you have classically put on PIV. Speaking as a queer person, that is very much how the sex that I've had with women and non-binary people has gone, because, I've had sex with people that don't have penises. So then when does actual sex start? The answer is when you start interacting. The kissing, the touching, everything that leads up to it is just as important.
Yeah. And I also want to add that in these maintenance situations, you can also say no.
Oh, yeah.
you can also always just be like, you know what, I just don't think I can go to bat for you right now. Or even if it's like a small thing, or this is a great moment to check in before they check out. It doesn't apply here, but just saying it again. This is a great moment where you might say, hey, I don't know if I can get myself there for us to have PIV, but like I can go down on
But,
you.
yeah, but here are the
Here
alternatives.
I can do this, I can do this.
Yeah, sometimes, I'm not in the mood and my partner is, and something I'll offer them is, do you want to come on my tits? Right? That's something that I can support very easily. I don't have to worry about like getting my body ready, but that's also something we can make eye contact. There's a period of connection there that I may want to have with my partner, even if I don't want to have sex. I still want to be connected and intimate. And there are so many different things that you can offer in support of connection and intimacy where your partner can get sexual gratification, even though that's not what you're looking for.
Yeah. Now you and I had talked before about this scale of enthusiastic consent. You had
Yes.
broken that down.
So this concept was actually introduced to me by Mia Schachter, who is an amazing consent educator. And they gave kind of this scale of comfort where you have fully comfortable, outside the comfort zone, discomfort, trauma. And obviously, we're trying to avoid trauma. But a lot of the time, you may want to try something new in bed, something you're unfamiliar with, something that you are familiar with but did not go well the last time you tried it. So even though you do want to do it, you are stepping outside your comfort zone. So that yes may not necessarily look like, hell yeah, like an enthusiastic yes, but that doesn't change the fact that that is something you want to do under specific conditions. And it's the specific conditions that really help clarify if someone is slightly uncomfortable but still enthusiastic versus I don't want to do that and I don't know how to say it.
Yeah. So Rachel's just diving into the scales of things. Now we're speaking specifically about like long-term relationship consent. I mean, this applies to both. The scale does.
Yes.
But the same thing is not true when you're in new relationships. Like new relationships, every single time you are stepping into that space, you want enthusiastic consent. And the reason why is because boundaries are sexy as fuck.
Oh, I love boundaries. I love boundaries so goddamned much.
And the big tip that I'm gonna give you all, and I've spoken to so many different people of every race, gender, makeup, especially when they talk about their long-term relationships and when they talk about the relationships they had that were hands down the most erotic, kinkiest, most insane relationships. The key element is that there were really strong, trusted boundaries in those space.
Yes.
Because stepping into a relationship, you two start going at it and you're recognizing that something that's going on and you stop and you say, hey, checking in with you. How are things? They're like, you know what? I'm really in my head right now. And you go, you know what? We'll do this another time. What you have just established for that person is that you have their safety in mind. They can trust your instincts. They can trust that they can be themselves, giving subtle signals that you will pick up on. And so then they go, you know what?
Actually, now that I have
That-
this information
yeah.
that you're paying attention, I feel better about this.
I feel super about this. Now, I've acknowledged that for people, they will then have sex. like you stopping saying no might lead to sex. That's not how it works. Don't say no, don't stop and say no because you think it's a lead to sex. But what it does do, you're building that trust with your partner, and then the next time your partner might go, hey, I would love to try this thing I've been thinking about. And the reason why they're bringing that up to you is because they trust that as they step into this murkier territory, this territory where there may be more grays, that you are a safe person to do that with.
That where they may have said yes in the beginning, and then in the experience, it starts to feel uncomfortable. It starts to feel like something they don't want to do, that you will listen if they said stop, even if they gave consent already, that they care about your experience. The issue when people hear the word boundaries, they hear walls, they hear limits, they hear keep you out, protect myself, defense, defense, defense. When actually our defenses go up when we don't think that someone will respect our boundaries and our signals and our bodily autonomy. If I feel like I need to protect myself from you, those walls are going up, and it takes a long time for them to come back down. But if I put out, instead of a wall, like a little fence, I'm like, here's my boundary. And instead of trying to hop over it, the person goes, cool, that's your boundary. I'm going to try over here. And it's like, oh, I don't have to build a wall. I can just leave this a nice little fence because the person's going to listen. They're going to respect it. And within those boundaries, the freedom grows exponentially because the trust grows exponentially.
I fucking love that metaphor. Hey, if you acknowledge my tiny fence, if you see that fence, because this is what we're doing is we're increasing connection. Mm-hmm. I want to let you into my vulnerable spaces.
We all want to be seen. We
Yeah.
want to feel vulnerable and connected with other people. Like, we all want that.
Yeah, I want to let you in. I got to make sure, though, that you're not going to fuck this space up.
Yeah.
That you're not going to walk in and start kicking things over.
No, if your friend says, hey, man, can I crash with you for a week? If your friend has a history of making a mess and not cleaning up after themselves, if your friend has a history of like eating other people's food without asking, is that a friend you want in your house? Somebody who's going to take your stuff and make your house a mess? No, you want to let people in that are going to take care of your space, that are going to respect the fact that you are being vulnerable, because being vulnerable takes strength and it takes bravery. It's not easy.
Yeah.
So you want someone to respect the position that you are voluntarily putting yourself in.
I love it. Tiny fences,
Tiny fences.
checking in. So to emphasize, moral of the story, summing it up, boundaries are sexy. That
So
applies
sexy.
to all genders. If you want to have a better sex life, listen to people's boundaries. And then, really important thing, don't try to move their boundaries.
No.
There's
Don't
there's
try
a
to
lot.
talk them into moving the fence.
Yeah, there is a lot that goes into, and this is why when in therapy, they use a lot of I statements. So you might say, "Hey, I would really love." I'm just gonna throw out a random thing. I would really love for you to dress up like a plumber. Okay. It would be great for me if you dressed up like a plumber. I would love this for all of these different reasons. What I've done already in this space is I've put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
We can start the conversation. We can do the dance. A lot of people will treat these things as a ultimatum.
Dress up like a plumber or I'm gone.
Yeah. They'll also be like, you need to do this for me. I can't be in this relationship unless this thing is on the table. Okay. And
Which happens.
It's
Absolutely.
me, Mario. Please dress up like Mario.
We are all
specifically.
allowed to ask for what we need in a relationship, but
Yeah.
we're also allowed to agree or not agree to what our partner is asking for.
And this is also an important part of the consent relationship is if someone dressing up like Mario, like a plumber, is a line in the sand. You absolutely need it. It is a deal breaker. It is a boundary for you that you cannot be with someone that does not dress up like a plumber. When that person is like, I just don't think that's in my wheelhouse, that's your answer.
Yeah.
Your
Done.
answer is not, I will start a campaign now to whittle away at this person slowly over the years, making them feel guilty and ashamed, talk about all of my exes that dressed up like plumbers for me,
Compare you to
compare
them
you to them.
constantly.
If that's an important thing to you and it's a line in the sand, that's your answer, and then you need to exit that relationship and find a person that loves dressing up like a plumber.
Because if someone is going to dress up as a plumber, you are really excited.
Yeah.
Don't you also want them to be excited about dressing up as a plumber? Or do you want someone, okay, here are the overalls. I put the stain where you asked. Like, I feel like so much emphasis is put on the person whose boundaries are perhaps not being respected or not listened to as the person who walks away with bad feelings, feeling bad about themselves and the other person. But I think most human beings don't want to cause harm to other people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure many people have been in a situation where they did cause harm to the other person, didn't mean to, and then was told they did later. That doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
That
We
does,
don't-
except, we're excluding sociopaths and abusers and people that like do want to hurt you, right? Like, I'm assuming those people are not listening to this podcast because they don't give a shit.
Right.
But it's also hurtful to cause someone else harm.
Yeah.
It is.
Especially when it's unintentional.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what was I thinking of? Oh, enthusiasm is like a really big part of everything in your sexual dynamic, and you should be looking at that scale and also creating space for people to grow into their own. There's a lot, depending on how old you are. I'm going to tell you all right now, the things that you are into and passionate about are going to change
Oh, so much.
a lot. There may be a thing that you super love and then you just stop loving it. Or there may be a thing that you have never been interested in and it becomes...
And all of a sudden it becomes your new obsession.
Yes. So one, create space for that. Now, that is not permission being like, well, if I just wait around long enough, my partner will be interested in dressing as a plumber. That's not necessarily true.
And here's the thing. Your partner can give you an answer of, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that right now. Can we circle back to this
That's
later?
a great answer.
I hear you. I want to acknowledge and appreciate that you're communicating this to me. I'm just not up for it right now. It may be because I'm physically unable to. We haven't built up enough trust yet. I don't know if I'm willing to invest in this relationship that much. There are a million different reasons.
There's also, and this is an important thing for you all out there, learning about yourself and the things that you're passionate about, especially in the sort of like intimate space. The more that you understand yourself, where your interests come from, why they're a big deal to you, is going to help you in all of your relationships. A weird question that nobody really starts thinking about when they're younger is like, why do I like sex? What is it about this for me? There's a general assumed, oh,
of course you like sex.
'Cause it's-
Everybody likes sex.
because my penis feels good.
Yeah.
But that's not what it is. Sex is all up here. It's such a mental game. And in this scenario, Rachel being the partner that was like, hey, I'm not into it right now. I have all these different concerns. One thing that I could say as a person that loves plumbers is, that's great. I totally hear that. I'm going to share with you a little bit about like what it is that I like about the plumber situation, what I am driven to and why I am. Here's some resources that I fell across that like really ignited this plumber passion for me.
And by communicating that to me, he is allowing me an ability to tap into what is exciting about it for him. And maybe if I can process that in my brain, it might change it for me. I had this relationship a long time ago where this person was very into feet. And not that I was put off by it, but I didn't get it. And I asked him to explain it to me, and he wrote this essay. It was amazing. He wrote this essay about the first time that he noticed girls' feet and what that meant to him, what seeing it meant, the feelings it ignited in him, and how that changed throughout the years. And just knowing the intricacies of how it first turned him on, why it continued to turn him on, it completely changed the experience for me, 100%. because I went from, yeah, I guess this is fine, to absolutely worship the fuck out of my feet, man.
Yeah.
You're awesome.
Well, I'm going to break down using Rachel's little tiny fence metaphor, our little boundary metaphor, what happened in this exchange that's different. So somebody might listen to what I said and be like, wow, what a great manipulative tool to get the person to do what you want. That is not the thing that we're talking about. And the reason why is this. If I were doing coercion, what I would be doing is I would be pushing on her fences, knocking those fences, or trying to go over those fences to get the thing that I want. What I did instead was like, hey, I love plumbers. I'm going to actually open my fence door and say, hey,
Come on in.
if you want to come in, on the other side of my little fence is a little bit of vulnerability around why I love plumbers so much. And she has the freedom of her own free will to come into the space, check it out, poke around, see if she's interested. And if she's not, can walk
Go
right
out
out.
again.
I'm not shutting the door. The little tiny fence behind her. It's a tiny fence so she can jump over anyway. But that's a big deal. And that metaphor and that visual of like, I'm not ever moving into her space. I'm opening up
Welcoming.
space for her to come into mine.
And when someone opens up that door, opens up that gate, and lets you have a little bit of their vulnerability, that's when connection happens.
It is. And then she goes, you know what? I might open this little door. And then you go, oh, okay, that's a new door that's open. And that's sort of how you build a trust and relationship that allows you to get into whatever plumber related things.
And
that
there
you
are
want.
so many.
So many
So many.
plumber related things. So that's our soft nose kind of like initial boundaries conversation. We've got some questions that we're going to tap into. Thank you, those that submitted. The first one is anonymous. And the question is, how often should you have sex in a healthy relationship? Should you push yourself to have sex semi-often to keep the relationship healthy?
Well, first of all, how often should you have sex in a healthy relationship is entirely dependent upon the people in that relationship. And some people are high libido, some people medium, some people are low libido.
Some people are those different things at different phases and different times.
Yeah.
And it can go up and down the scale.
For people with uteruses, we may be in those different phases in the space of a month, in the space of a week, in the space of a day. Our hormones fluctuate by the day. It's really insane. So that's something that you have to find with your partner. And it's not really, I find, a lot about sex. What is it actually about?
It's about intimacy
and connection.
So in terms of, is there a certain number? We're a healthy couple if we have sex once a week, once a month. Obviously, that varies based off of you and your partner. And what you got to do is you got to check in before they check out. My wife and I, even though we are married, we have the periodic conversation that is me just coming to her and saying, hey, how are you feeling about our sex life? How are you feeling about the frequency? Are you feeling connected? Where are we at? So having that check-in conversation before you go, oh, I'm just not getting it enough, and there's all these frustrations, and I'm not having my needs met, and
then putting that blame on your partner instead of I'm not having my needs met, my partner is not meeting my needs, my partner is ignoring me, and that starts to build up resentment, and resentment is going to destroy connection and intimacy.
Yeah. So the reason why we say, is there now times of like that you should have sex? No. Intimacy, though, that is something that you have to put a lot of work into. And the reason why is we naturally, as human beings, become comfortable with things. And in that comfort space, it's unintentional. It is a psychological way of conserving energy, which is this. In the beginning of our relationship, going at it all the time, we're cuddling when we go to bed. We're always cuddling. We're always close to each other.
It's effortless.
If it's effortless, blah, blah, blah. As you move on, there might be a night where you're like, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to spoon tonight. I kind of like, I just really need to sleep. So
Actually
you blah, blah.
sleep.
You actually sleep. So you kind of, and you eventually start realizing that like after a very long period of time, you just like have not
You haven't
cuddled.
spooned.
Yeah.
What happened?
Right.
And you don't know what happened. You
And-
ask what happened, and there's no specific time you can point to, but all of a sudden you haven't spooned, you haven't done this thing that makes you feel connected, and now you are feeling disconnected and you don't know how to get back.
Yeah. Ways of getting back is doing things intentionally because they're no longer effortless. So I will have moments with my partner where I will, when I kiss her, because I kiss her all the time, saying good morning, goodbye, whatever, just whatever.
Kiss
I
her
will,
good.
I will make sure that I fucking kiss her good.
Yeah.
And just that, sometimes I will get she will bounce up and go, whoa, okay, blah, blah. And that's it. I've reestablished intimacy. It is something that is just like, I'm going to give this moment super. I could tell Rachel's already like,
No, I just
like you're
the being caught off guard with a really intense kiss with no expectation and attachment of what else the kiss might lead to, but oh my God, the instant, just like it wakes your brain up, it wakes your entire nervous system up. You're like, this person still wants me.
Yeah. And the thing is we as couples end up with shorthands with each other. I know that I can do X, Y, Z. We can
And
get
that'll
to,
make
we
you
could do
feel
the
X,
blah.
Y, Z.
Yeah, we do that. Or like, oh, butt looks good. I touch your butt and I move on. But having the, oh damn, that butt looks great, and doing a really intentional, oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna like grab that as if it was the first time I ever saw that.
Mm-hmm.
That lights your partner back up.
Picnic basket, starving man in a desert. Just,
Yes. So answer your
and
question.
especially if you don't know it's necessarily coming, if it's happening at a time it doesn't often happen, our brains get lighted in different areas when you do something outside of the norm, when you
Yeah.
do something outside of this normal pattern and a rhythm that we all get into. But like you experience it in a completely different way.
There's other really, and this is again speaking to the long-term couple relationships out there, because new couples, well, you should just be exploring things with each other.
Yeah.
But long-term relationships, there are a variety of ways of like constantly reigniting that spark. And one of the ways I highly recommend for people is just doing something different. Now you're like, that's a dumb piece of advice, Peter. But here's what I'm going to break it down in a simpler way. When I say doing something different, I mean just having a thing where, you know what, for the next month, PIV is off the table.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Boom. All of a sudden, it's like you're going to start you're back into a different space. You're back at a different level in the relationship. You're going to start getting more creative about all the other different things that you're going to do.
Improvise, adapt, overcome.
But you can do a simple thing like, okay, for the next month, we're not allowed to have sex in the bedroom.
And just one simple rule can set off this entire chain. And you might discover something new that you want to integrate on a more regular basis that you never would have known.
Bam!
In a million
So that's
years.
the whole thing. You go, okay, not going to have sex in the bedroom. All of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I love having sex in the office. It like, oh, it makes me feel this way. You start having sex in the office more often. Or you take the month that you take PIV off the table, it's like, oh my God, you started doing this thing that I absolutely love.
Oh my God,
that's
the
gotta
back
stay,
of my knee. How did
that's
you
gotta
know?
stay in there. Hit that back of that knee all the time.
Just get right in that knee.
Or on the front porch. Absolutely.
Whatever it is. But the main thing that you're going for is, I am trying to make this moment of connection. I'm trying to make this moment of intimacy where we are both super present, checked in, and in the moment with each other. So that may not be sex. And sometimes it may not even be like touching, because it's being present and connected is all about where your mind is.
So people step into, and this is why it's like a good psychology trick. The grass is greener mentality that we all step into. You want to have the thing that you can't have. So a lot of times people will give the advice of like, if you have to put it more in your relationship, make sure you're having sex twice a week. Well, guess what? That feels like a fucking chore.
Yeah.
That's
an assignment.
That's an assignment. But you know what is not an assignment? Shaggy says no hands. That's a challenge.
Thanks, Shaggy.
That's a challenge. So you spend a month together, not trying to hit a certain marker of measurement, but just being like, you know what? We're facing this challenge together. I'm now looking at the world things are upside down from my normal perspective. I start adapting and doing different things. And
my brain is working in a different way. And, one of the recommendations a lot of people give on what to do on first or second dates is to try something you haven't tried before. It wakes up a different part of your brain and it makes you connect to the person you're doing it with in a completely new way.
Boom. So there you go. All of you out there, take on a challenge. And healthy relationships is just that you're being intimate with each other. We got a question from Eurorex. He said, I'm just getting back in the dating scene. I think me and this one lady have a connection, but I went to ask her out and fumbled. I fought in a war and still find it difficult to ask her out. Why? Asking people out
is really hard.
It's hard.
It's a lot of pressure.
Here's a big thing. No matter what you do, there's always that cliff. You can try to psychologically prepare for it. A lot of people will do this. This is like 90% of the population. They will not make a move until they have confirmation from the other side.
Every green light and flag.
That the move is welcome and coming. So that's the beauty of Tinder, which is we've both already matched. That means we've gotten the green light. I can ask you out because you've already agreed to this step of the thing.
So that level of vulnerability, because asking someone else is putting yourself in a very vulnerable position. You're giving them an opportunity to reject you. Rejection sucks. Nobody likes feeling rejection. And a lot of times people's reaction to being rejected is anger, frustration, trying to, oh, no, like you misunderstood me or backstep in some way.
Yeah. I will give you a really cool insider tip. I don't know if it's insider, but it's very helpful. You have to be mindful of how big your ask is. So if I come up to a person that I barely know and I say, will you be in a committed relationship with me? The answer is no.
No.
And this comes back to our boundary space. It is like, I don't even know you. You've asked for this. So for some people, there is the like, hey, do you want to go on a date with me? And by going on this date, you are signing up and agreeing that we will have sexual intercourse by the end of the date. That person is like, God, I don't know what I'm asking for. So being mindful of your ask might be, hey, you seem like a really fun person. I would love to get to know you. Would you like to go on a hike or would you like to grab some coffee sometime?
Or in our conversation, we were talking about movies. I was going to go see this movie. Do you want to check it out with me? Because I think that removes even more of the pressure when you say, this is something I was already going to do anyway on my own because I am a cool person with lots of interest and I go do fun things.
Yeah.
I'm not creating this for you. I created this for myself. Would you like to come along? It's the opportunity feels different.
Now, what you're doing in this situation is you're sticking in your zone, in your little fences, and you're saying, hey, I'm going in this direction. I'm inviting you into my space. That is different than me saying, hey, can I come into your space? Inviting the other person into my space gives them the opportunity to say yes, no, a variety of other things in between. It's so much easier for people to be like, oh no, I'm busy or whatever. And if they say they're busy, if they're interested, they'll say, hey, I'm not available this time.
But what about next Tuesday?
Right.
If they don't offer an alternative, that's a soft no.
That's a soft no.
Soft no.
That is I don't think that I actually want to spend time doing this thing with this person. Totally fine. Down the road, Can you ask them again? Give it some time. Maybe,
Yeah.
but it's don't ask them again without having moved your relationship more.
Right. I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up is they see somebody that they're attracted to. They want to go on a date with them, and the conversation is a means to an end. They're only talking to them to get to the point of being able to ask them out on a date. The antidote to this is by talking to people because you're genuinely curious in them. And not just the people you find attractive. I find the most successful daters is so dumb. But like the people that have the most success asking people out on dates are the people that talk to everybody. Are the
Yeah.
people that aren't afraid to like strike up a conversation with someone of the same gender, a different gender, whatever, waiting in line, people who just like chat with the salespeople at the coffee place. If you have ease in talking to people, if you can create that ease, if you can foster curiosity in other people, regardless of whether or not you're attracted to them, all of a sudden you get all this practice. And then that conversation with the person you are attracted to isn't such a huge mountain to climb, isn't like, oh my God, I'm only talking because I'm building up to this one moment and I'm overthinking this moment and oh, what's going to happen? Instead, you're just having another chat like you do every single day. And through that chat, through that curiosity, you can maybe find some opportunities that you can use. Like, hey, you mentioned like you haven't been to the beach in a while. I was actually going to do a beach day. I was
Yeah.
actually going to do this. You mentioned this because you know what else people love? Being listened to. And when you show that you've been listening to them by repeating something they said to you, ooh, delicious,
Yeah.
delightful.
So your ex, thank you for tuning in. And this is great to have the person in the chat that we're engaging with. I love your being mindful of the soft nose response. The thing that I will also add to you that you're bringing up is part of the reason why you want to say yes to soft nose, and this for everybody. It's not just about protecting them because you're acknowledging their boundaries. It's also preventing you from wasting your time. So like if you put this, if you've put yourself out there and you say what you said of like, hey, you seem cool. Let's get some coffee and see if it goes anywhere. If they're like kind of, I don't know, what's it, flaky and and don't offer to set up another date, fuck them. And the reason why is because if you have to keep asking over and over again, this is going to be a theme in your relationship that you are going to be the person that is doing all of the work.
And you are going to feel less and less
Yes.
valued and less appreciated every time you ask. And the other person is going to take you more and more for granted because they never have to put in any effort.
Yeah. You want to go out on a, my puppy is getting so upset. You want to go on a date with someone that's excited to go on a date with you, not somebody that is willing to go on a date with you.
Not somebody that's like, I'm here, impress me, but rather someone that says, hey, I want to know more about you, but also here's a little bit about me. I want you to show up and be present, and I'm willing to do the same thing.
Yeah, I've talked with many of my partners about this, but definitely my current partner. We've talked about the importance of like why enthusiasm in every part of the relationship is so important. So for example, it's like if someone's like, oh, are you really into like getting blowjobs? It's like, well, yeah, if the person wants to do it.
Right.
Nothing is sadder to me than someone's like, okay. And I'm like, oh my God,
boy.
listen, no. Not to like put things on a pedestal, but like I've gotten oral sex from people that love doing it. And if you don't love doing it, by all means, I'll take it off the menu.
It's not the same thing. It's not even the same fucking thing. If like the attitude I want to see is I've never tasted anything better in my entire fucking life, and I'm thrilled to be here. If that's not the energy you're walking into it with, forget it.
But it's cool. It's like, can you be that enthusiastic all the time? No, not necessarily. But like, you want that
the first few times.
You want that to be there because yeah, there's
It feels good.
if you ask somebody to do something, whether it's like going on a date or something in the intimate space, and they're just kind of like sure, then you should go, you know what, let's do something
Don't worry
else.
about it.
like
Don't worry about it.
like don't take, this is for all of us, and I'm just as guilty of it. Don't take these like soft yeses as yeses for our own sake. We deserve to have people that like want us to be there, that are excited about going on dates. You can be nervous, you can be timid and go, yeah, I'm saying sure because like I'm going through a lot and I just don't know. But like, oh my God, it's so much better if somebody gives you a real genuine yes.
But you know what that requires? That requires the person who's answering to check in with themselves, know themselves enough to know whether or not they really want to do that thing, they maybe don't want to do that thing, or they absolutely don't. Because all you can do is go off of the answer that the other person is giving you. And that includes soft nose, that includes body language and all of that. But like, I had this conversation with my mom recently where I think she has some difficulty setting up boundaries because she wants to be so accommodating. You know, her answer is always whatever the group wants to do. And the example she gave me was, if someone invites me to go see a movie and I've seen that movie 17 times, it doesn't matter because that's what the other person wants to do. So I'll say yes. And I went, if I invited someone to a movie that they had already seen 17 times and I didn't find that out until afterwards, I would feel awful. I'd be so embarrassed that I forced this person to sit through this movie again, but it was out of my control because they didn't communicate that to me. They were so afraid of offending me, of making me feel like they didn't want to see me at all, that they couldn't even suggest another movie. So we also have to take responsibility for ourselves and know what we want to do, what we don't want to do. And if you still want to spend time with that person, be able to offer an alternative that you are excited about.
Yeah. And I saw Dragon Exodon said, this seems to work with friends as well. Had a close friend who started to say maybe next week every time they asked to hang out. Yeah, those are soft no's. And, you know, this is also a thing. I don't know how old each person is in chat, but I know that as I've gotten older, I put no energy into space that people that are I'm not enthusiastic about hanging out and that aren't enthusiastic about hanging out with me.
Yes.
And this is also like people that are still good people. They've done nothing wrong. All they've done is that the conversation is fine. That's enough for me to go, you know what? I don't think we need to do this. Why are we getting together?
No.
Are you having a good time? I'm not having a great time.
But also on that track, I can be somebody that doesn't always initiate the hangout, but I try to say yes as much as possible. And if I recognize that I'm giving somebody a pattern of saying no over and over again, I will be specific and say, hey, I know I've been really busy lately. I want to let you know that I do want to hang out with you, but I have ADD, or I'm working a lot, or I'm depressed and I'm finding it really hard to get up the energy to see people right now. I really appreciate that you keep asking me. That will let them know, oh, she's not just saying a soft no, because I'm communicating that to them. I'm communicating, hey, please keep inviting me. Please keep inviting me because that's what I need and it makes me feel good to be invited. But by doing that, I'm not leaving the other person hanging. I'm not leaving them feeling devalued, feeling ignored, and feeling useless. Got to take accountability.
Damn, and you got to communicate. All right, everybody. I think that's it for our first episode. This was really wonderful. We got all of these like soft no conversations going on. Please go join the Discord. It's on our channel. Thank you for the hard yes. Thank you for the support. I love everyone's using the language. And don't forget to check in
before they check out.
Bye.